two good teams, one of them the Chiefs, so thank you. I hope that can be the entirety of the Chiefs discussion for this little interview today. My takeaway is this. You have been a Baker Mayfield critic. I have been a Baker Mayfield supporter. Through 5 games of the most important season of his career up to this point, your side of the argument's winning. And it's weird when your team scores 42 and you get hosed on a bad pass interference call and people are like, well, the quarterback should have played better. But if you watched the game, the fact of the matter is the quarterback needed to play better in the biggest spots. And I don't think Kevin Stefanski is an idiot. In fact, I think quite differently. I think he's very, very sharp. And I do think it was telling and a bit of an indictment that in a game that was up and down, 3rd and 10, 2.5 left, he hands the ball off when they knew they had to score. They knew they had to go get points there because they weren't going to stop the Chargers, even though they were up 1 there. So, yeah, this is a moment of truth for Baker over the next few months because the point you've been making this morning is a similar one to one I was making in regards to Mac Jones, which was Patriot fans are all excited about it. And I'm like, okay, what is your best case scenario for Mac Jones? That he's the 9th best quarterback in his prime in the AFC? Because the AFC does have a glut of excellent young quarterbacks. You have Patrick Mahomes, you have Justin Herbert, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Josh Allen. I believe Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. So there's 6. So what's Baker there? 7? And I might have left one out if I'm forgetting somebody. So it's a problem for the Patriots long term. It might be a problem for Cleveland right now. Now, do I think he can get it together? I do. But so far, Colin, your point about when they know you're going to throw, can you throw? He has not excelled in that spot. He needs to be better, and I'm sure the Ohio media has gone the other way. I'm not streaming the fan there, but I imagine they've gone from, you know, he's an MVP candidate to should we even give him a contract? It's somewhere in the middle. But unfortunately right now, Colin Cowherd appears to be winning the argument. Has not won the argument, is winning the Baker Mayfield argument.
I want to go to this. So Wednesday is the day you have tiers. So I was walking into FS1 today, the Fox building. It's beautiful. And the security guys were complaining about Nick, and they yelled, look, and he created a new tier just so he'd have a place for Kansas City. They literally, it was $5.50, and they're going, and I looked at him, I went, isn't that ridiculous? I'll ask him about it today. So give me your tiers.
All right, well, listen, people, Colin, there are a few things I've learned from you, my television mentor. One of them is to always just cloak yourself in objectivity. I'm just dripping in objectivity. Do you know how much it pained me to put the Chiefs beneath those 8 teams? But I did it because they have not earned a higher ranking. Now, if we are being honest, all the teams beneath them, they deserve to be ahead of what you're not seeing on your screen. The Browns, the Seahawks with no Russ, the Niners, they're better than those teams. But they're not as good as the teams above them, so they had to be by themselves. What I think people are upset by, to be honest, is the name of that tier, future favorites.
Right.
That's, again, if you're by yourself, alone, you don't have to deal with any of your friends, family, sports fans, and you're having an honest moment, you know at the end of the year the Chiefs are going to be right there where they're supposed to be, back on top. But right now they're not.
Okay, so
and I think right now the Cowboys, Colin, are the best team in football. I think, Colin, right now the Cowboys are the best team in football.
Well, let's talk about that. They are. If you go back to the rookie year, Dak was 23rd in attempts. Now he's 19th, and in those 2 years, this year and that year, they're 17-4. I said, don't confuse that with hate. Don't even confuse it with criticism. It's called reality. Cowboys are better the less Dak throws, if he's in the 28 to 30 throws. And I don't think that's criticism. I just think that's the reality of what Dak is, right?
Well, kind of. I also, listen, I have learned a lot from you as I demonstrated with the objectivity thing. I think one of the things, if I may dare to try to teach you something, is if during a segment that's 5 minutes long, you spend 2 of those minutes saying a variation of, this isn't criticism, this isn't hate, this isn't criticism, then maybe it's a little criticism. Maybe there's a little hint of it there. Here's the thing. I think those numbers are a little misleading because I'd rather look at, if we wanted to really get in the weeds of it, like first half pass attempts. How much of it is they're running the ball late once they've gotten the lead, very often gotten the lead through throwing. But I do think the Cowboys' formula from Dak's rookie year, which was a quarterback that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, can make big throws, lean on the running game, and this to me is why I have the Cowboys as high as I do, a defense that isn't a disaster.
Right.
Trayvon Diggs has been spectacular. Micah Parsons has been as advertised. They don't even have DeMarcus Lawrence. They'll be getting him back. So you do wonder how much of it was just terrible defensive coordinator last year. Now they have Dan Quinn. I do think you're underselling Dak a tiny bit.
Right.
I think it's remarkable that Dak has not shown any atrophy from the injury.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'll stay there. But I think right now the Cowboys are one of the only teams in the league you can say they don't do anything poorly.
Yeah.
They do everything either good or great right now. And that, to me, is enough to make you the best team in football through 5 weeks.
So the Nets and Kyrie, I said yesterday, I told Joy, I said, what the NBA should have is once a decade, you should be able to just get rid of a player. The player still gets paid, but it doesn't hurt your cap. If there's a tragic injury, there was a team years ago that drafted a young man from Iowa State, Royce White. He didn't like flying, and they were trapped. And I'm like, you should just be able, once a decade, you get an exemption for this thing happened. We can't do anything. We shouldn't be punished for it, but the player still gets paid. That's what, then you could say with Kyrie Irving, all right, we're just moving off of him, but we don't want to be punitive on the books. What would you do if, you can't do that, obviously. What would you do if you were Brooklyn with Kyrie?
By the way, Royce White yelled at me in a mall parking lot once. He was drafted by my buddy Daryl Morey and the Rockets.
Yeah.
I was somewhat critical of him. He was not a fan of mine. So what you're describing is like the amnesty clause, which the NBA did do once upon a time, but it was a one-time thing. You can amnesty one player. I think the Nets did exactly what they had to do yesterday. Go home. This part-time thing's not going to happen, and we don't even have to get into Kyrie's utter nonsense. That embarrassment of an article in the Athletic where a voice for the voiceless, you're not talking, brother. You're literally saying nothing. And then the freedom fighter stuff, it's like, yeah, I'm going to think of Ali sitting out the Vietnam War, Maya Moore missing a year to try to get someone out of prison, and Kyrie Irving doing what now? But what should the Nets do? I think they should trade him. I think it's now, I reported 3 weeks ago that he said, if you trade me, I'll retire. I think that there will be a team that would call his bluff on that.
Yeah.
And say, okay, really, you're going to retire? To me, that's the move, is you trade him not for a star. Ben Simmons, the Sixers would not trade Kyrie for Ben Simmons anymore. That's gone. Kyrie's trade value has plummeted. But could you get Zach Lowe posited, like Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, some Clippers pieces? Could you get some role players? That's the question I would ask, and I think the answer is yes. That's the next move. You have to sever this entirely. And where Colin was right, leaving Steph for Kyrie appears to be a major mistake by Kevin Durant. Now, maybe with Harden they can overcome it, but that is an all-time gaffe.
Boy, a little bit of a comeuppance. There was some acknowledgement to the accuracy of this show, and it's pained you to do it. But nonetheless, you had the courage to face a reality. Speaking of realities, that sometimes we hit on these things.